Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel. Together, we're going to be diving into some stories of ordinary people doing a little bit of extraordinary things. People who've maybe pushed their bodies, their mindsets, or maybe society's paradigms. So you're going to find yourself maybe wanting to laugh, cry, or even be inspired. We would invite you to share, like, and subscribe, to sign up for our newsletter as well on activateandilluminate.com. Now, just keep in mind that this information that you are going to hear is informational and educational for entertainment purposes only. This does not constitute professional advice of any kind. The views expressed are those of myself and guests only. Listeners are encouraged to seek professional and legal advice regarding their own situations. So, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, and thanks again for being here. Hello and welcome. So today, you may have heard of a lady called Tanya Kach. Now, she was missing for 10 years and found out that she had been abducted and held hostage by a school security guard. Now, she has quite the story of let's call it a troubled past, troubled home life that led her into a very precarious situation where she was able to be groomed, abducted, and then held for 10 years. And this story, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about her experience, where that has left her, how she was able to get through it, and some warning signs of grooming. And we also talk about Stockholm syndrome, which is where you identify and feel sorry for your abductor. It's quite an interesting life. It's quite an interesting story. There's definitely trigger warnings, and I would invite you to come along on this journey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Everything that transpired up to that point, I was my parents were going through a divorce. So I was coming from a broken home. And then my dad meets someone and they only know each other a couple months. And he's like, hey, we're moving to a new city and all of that, and I didn't want to move from my hometown, but I ended up moving what was about 30 minutes away called McKeesport. It was difficult, my home life in McKeesport when my dad moved in with his girlfriend. It was very difficult. Didn't have the best home life, didn't include me in family things, just said I was a problem. I was a rebellious teenager though, but my dad just stopped caring, and he just gave up being a parent. So I was this broken young girl, naive girl. And then I start at the new school district, and that's where I met my perpetrator.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that and just how that transpired.
Well, after we moved, to McKeesport, of course, I had to be enrolled in school. So I was enrolled in what was called Cornell Middle School. I was in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite different, going to school there, because where I come from is just this little town, and going to McKeesport was a bigger town. And then going to that school, there's security guards. Like my school growing up never had that. We never had, any fights or anything.
Yeah.
So that was a new complete setting for me, and I met Tom, and right away, he kept his eye on me. There was another girl that he was into, a young 13-year-old girl, before I came along. Her name was Carly Ann. And after he laid eyes on me, that was it. He left her alone, and then it was all on me. He used to come to my class and pull me out of my classroom, acting like I was in trouble for something. And here he would say, let's just walk the halls, talk, or go to our secret spot, which he made it underneath the gym stairs. And that, and the relationship kept growing over months. And he kept saying to me that I deserve better. I don't deserve the home life that I have, that he could take care of me so much better. And he painted this wonderful picture. He really did. And, I was iffy at first. And until I got to know him a little bit more and him grinding that into my head. And he convinced me to run away to him. And on February 10th, 1996 was the day that I ran away from my parents' home and went to Tom. The first person, though, the house that I went to was Judy Sokol. She was his accomplice. She was a hairdresser and she only lived a few blocks from Tom. She did not live far away. And so I had to go to Judy's house first whenever I ran away. And she met me outside. I'd never met this lady before. And she welcomes me into her home and she calls Tom and says to him, hey, she's here, and then that's whenever he came up and he just sat me down and he was telling me the plan about going to his house because he lived with his elderly parents and his son. His son lived there. He was 2 years younger than me. So he was 12 when all this happened. And, I remember going to Tom's house and he convinced me that I had to stay up in the bedroom. And he told his son that as well, and his son agreed to whatever his father said. And that's when my nightmare began, living in a room, a small bedroom, and then being in a closet for a long time.
So, if I understand this correctly, both Judy and his son knew you were there the whole time that you were missing and stuff was being published and stuff about you?
Really, nothing was really published on me except when a young girl was murdered in 1998 in the cemetery. And then my name was in the paper because I was missing at that point. But, as Tom told me that I was just another number in a database, that it was just protocol that they brought up my case. But then it went cold again. But the thing is my dad never cared to look for me. He says that he did, but no, he did not. He would have found me. There was so many signs, like I wrote in my diary and stuff, and they didn't put two and two together, because
Mm.
Judy was in the diary as well. And they handed it over to the police and then nothing happened.
So she was his accomplice.
Yeah.
I and was she part of your lives, like, the whole time you were there?
No, not the whole time. Within like 2 months, she didn't want me coming to the house anymore because CYF had showed up at the door asking about a runaway teenager, which was me. And
Okay.
she told them that she never knew me or saw me or doesn't know what they're talking about. And it was at that point after they had left, she called Tom and she ended everything with Tom and I. And yeah, then I became absolutely secluded in that bedroom.
So there was a movie done about your story. Do you feel like it was portrayed well?
Yes, I do. I think Lifetime did a great job.
Okay,
We could not put in there about my father.
okay,
That's why in the movie it says that I have foster parents. The
okay.
reason why is my dad is sue happy. My father sued me for 10 years. Yes, he sued me for defamation of character because of my book, how I portray him in my book.
Mhm.
And he lost the suit, but he sued me for 10 years for it, you know. So we couldn't put him in the movie because he was sue happy. And Lifetime didn't want any part of being sued.
So the producer of that show was Elizabeth Smart, who's also been through a
Yeah.
lot of a similar situation to you. Did
Oh,
you take
yeah.
Was there some comfort in that knowing someone that was telling your story understood?
Yeah, there was a lot of comfort in that, meeting her and just looking at each other like, and I'm looking at her and it's like she understands. She went through such a similar thing that I went through. We both went through this horrible thing
Mm.
and to come out of it alive and thriving, it was it was so great to touch base with her and meet her and have a conversation with her. And she is the most sweetest person you'd ever want to meet. She's so down to earth, very, very kind. She was great.
Looking back in hindsight, would you say that there's any blessings over what you went through?
Blessings is that I'm alive
Mhm.
because Tom threatened my life every day.
Yeah.
And he told me he'd smother me in my sleep, throw me in a garbage bag, and throw me in a river. That was put in my head every day.
So you went there at 14,
Yes.
and to start with, you weren't allowed any freedom. You were basically in a in the closet, from what I
Yeah.
understand. So just for people that know nothing of your story, take us through a little bit of the transition of it, how it started, how it ended, and then we'll maybe go into some of those more details.
Well, I mean, I already went to his house, told you how Judy, you
Yep.
know. So I'm there, and for the first 4 years there, I stayed secluded in that bedroom. I did not step foot outside of that house. I didn't step foot outside at all, and for 4 years. And having to stay in the closet, especially on Christmas Eve, was really hard. And the reason why I had to go into the closet was to hide from Tom's parents. Anytime they knocked on the door or Christmas time when they're exchanging gifts, and there were a couple years where they did have a couple people over on Christmas. I'd hear everything downstairs, but I'd be upstairs in this tiny closet just listening. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if my family's thinking about me right now. And I was thinking about my family, like what were they doing? Were they just moved on and celebrating Christmas like I never existed? That was really hard on me.
I bet.
So after the 4 years, though, Tom started to let me outside. He felt that I could go on a small shopping trip and buy myself some clothes. And there was this clothing store that I had to take a bus to. And he gave me the directions, told me what bus to catch, what bus to catch home, what time. Like he wrote all this down for me. And he gave me $120 to go buy some clothes because I was only wearing hand-me-downs from him and his son.
Okay.
So I go to this clothing store, and that was my first time out in public in 4 years. And I was like a deer in the headlights. Like I found some clothes, but I just remember looking at everybody like I felt like they were all staring at me.
Hmm.
You know, it was very nerve-wracking, but I found some clothes and I called him like he said, and I got on the bus and then called him from the bottom of the hill, told him I was walking up the hill when he was in the backyard waiting for me. And the reason why I got to go out was because his parents were out somewhere. So that's how he snuck me out of the house when they weren't home.
Do you think that was his test to you to see if you'd be obedient or run?
Now, yes. Yes. Back then, no. I mean, it was like a magnet. I had to get back to him. That's how I felt.
Hmm.
I felt I couldn't survive in this world without him.
Yeah.
That's what he did to me. And.
Did you see him in your head as your boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay.
And then at one point, he proposed to me and
Yep.
I said yes. And I felt like his fiance because he kept promising that he would get it our own apartment and, get out of there and then I'd be, more free and he could take better care of me then, because his father's health was going downhill and there was a lot of medical bills that they had to pay and medicine for his dad and everything. But not, it was all broken promises of everything.
Was there any signs that you can look back on the grooming process and tell people about what they were?
Yeah. What he started to do was, he took me out of class, would walk around and talk to me, made that secret spot under the gym stairs, for us to go down and make out and talk and for him to still devise his plan of I can take better care of you. You don't deserve what's going on at home. What people don't understand is, whenever you go through trauma, you feel like such a broken person. That's exactly how he made me feel and how I felt, but after I was rescued and out of there, I went to intense therapy with the Center for Victims and that helped me get my life on track.
What was the hardest thing about being rescued?
The hardest thing was, I was scared that he would find out before the police came and got me and he would kill me. And that was the biggest thing on my mind. After they showed up, I was still scared of him, but, I had that courage to say to him, it's over because I realized what he had done to me, because seeing the store owner and everything and just people living their normal lives, and, that was hard. But I thought after I got rescued that I would be homeless. I truly thought that. I thought, "Oh, They would take me to the police station, enter in some numbers and say, "Hey, okay, you're not missing anymore, so you can go free," because I was 24 at the time. And that didn't happen. They got a hold of my dad, and my dad came to the police station to pick me up that night I got rescued. And he acted like he cared. But after living with my father for a couple months, he turned against me and blamed me for what happened.
Hmm.
I've been estranged from my father for over 15 years.
Wow, I'm sorry. Are you estranged from your mom as well?
No, my mom and I are very, very close. We
Okay.
talk every day. Yeah. Mom
And
supported me through everything whenever I came home. Like she went through because they suggested that my dad and my mom go through separate therapy themselves because they said that they, also had a trauma because they lost their daughter and thought their daughter was dead, that they needed therapy as well.
hmm,
And for all of us to just, adapt to normal life now, like all of a sudden I'm here,
yeah.
and my dad refused the therapy and my mom was all for it. And we went through intense therapy and our relationship just grew so strong. And, my mom was proud of me of getting my GED and being able to drive and get my driver's license. So mom and we're really, really close. I
Oh, that's
just celebrated
fantastic.
her birthday with her. She
Oh,
turned 65.
how nice, Tanya.
Yeah.
So, in watching the movie, and I haven't read your book, Memoirs of a Milk Carton Kid, but I will. I watched the movie, and I had so many questions. Like, did you guys whisper? Like, how did you
Yeah.
his parent? Like, if somebody was upstairs in my house, I feel like I could hear my kids like do and I saw the picture of the house that you I saw the house that you were held in. So it's
Mhm.
like part of me was like, how is this even possible that this happened for so long without being found out?
We He made me memorize all the floorboards in the bedroom, so I wouldn't creak while he was at work during the day because he still worked at the school while he had me captive. He went to
Wow.
work every day, but he had me memorize the floorboards and stay on a certain side of the room because you could look under the door to the room that I was in. But his mom, I think one time stopped on the steps and like stood there to listen. And I just sat there quiet, like, you know, because their stairs creaked. You could hear them going up and down the steps and everything. So like I said, we whispered, and I just stayed obedient to Tom. Whatever he said went
Was he violent with you?
only during sex.
Okay. Tell us about that. How was it possible that you were there for 10 years? How did you manage to not get pregnant or to take
By
care
the
of
grace,
yourself?
by the grace of God, we had a scare and it was in 2000. And it was in August, and for 3 months, at first I lost my period and for a month,
Okay.
and he was afraid that I was pregnant, so he bought a pregnancy test, and it came back negative. The next month, didn't get my period again, took another test, negative. 3rd month, did the same thing, negative. But my period was gone for years, and the reason why I found out was because I was so anorexic. I was only 93 pounds that I just stopped getting my period.
Hmm. So, did he cook for you? Did he bring you food? Like, how did you stay nourished? Obviously, you weren't, but
Right. I ate the leftovers on his plate.
no. So, a lot of people think rescue is the ending or the beginning.
Mhm.
Did it feel like that, or did it
Uh,
feel like a struggle coming out of that environment?
it was a struggle coming out of there because I was so controlled.
Mhm.
And when I first went to my dad's house, I was welcome to anything in the fridge and you know what I
Yeah,
mean, or anything in the kitchen to eat. But I would still ask my own father, like, can I go and get a bottle of water or something?
yeah.
So I had to get out of that mode of, constantly asking to do something or to have something.
Do you ever find yourself reverting back to it now? Like, do you do any of those habits or behaviors that still come back to you?
No,
No.
no.
Well, that's fantastic. So
Yeah.
tell us, you've gone through this and you went through it for a long time.
Yeah.
I've got so many questions for you, but tell us where you are now and the Tanya Cash, how you're living your life and just, things that you're doing that you're proud of.
Though I'm living my life now is with my husband. We've been together coming on 18 years now. I
Wow.
met him in 2008.
Okay.
And what I do a lot of today is I watch our grandson a lot. Now, I couldn't have children of my own due to what happened to me. I had to have a hysterectomy.
Okay. From
But
damage?
yes.
Okay.
And when I met my husband, though, he had 2 children from a previous marriage, a son and a daughter. And so I met his son when he was 13 and met his daughter whenever she was 16. And they lived with us and I helped raise them and, helped them graduate high school and everything until they, were ready to leave the house and stuff. I acted like a mom to them. I did my best. And then my stepson had 2 children of his own. He has a
Mhm.
12-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. But unfortunately, a year and a half ago, we lost my stepson in a tragic motorcycle accident. So I spend a lot of time with my grandson helping my stepson's wife out, my daughter-in-law out, because all of a sudden she was thrown into being a single mom,
Mhm.
whenever he passed away. And so I help her out a lot, and I love spending time with my grandson, Jay. It's wonderful. 6 is such a great age. It's a fun age, but, I stay at home. I'm a stay-at-home wife, and so I take care of my grandson, but I also do podcasts, and I've done speaking engagements at certain places for things and told my story. And it's whenever I get an offer, somebody writes me, asks me to be on a podcast or to go and speak, I'm all for it because I want people to know that, there is still hope. Like anybody that's going through, anybody that's missing, there's still
Mhm.
hope, and after going through something so tragic that you can turn your life into such a positive.
Mhm.
And that's what I've done with my life. Now, I've had to learn things the hard way that some friends are not true friends to me,
Mhm.
that I had to cut ties with. I had to learn some things the hard way that way. And some family is not, really family. I found out that they had talked behind my back some really bad stuff. So it's better they're not in my life. So like I said, I eliminated my dad, my part of my family and friends, some friends that I had.
Your perception of freedom, what does it mean to you now?
Oh, now it's being able to just walk out the door. I'm free to do whatever I want. If I want to go take a drive in my car, I can go take a drive in my car. I just, it's wonderful. That's what, you know, to have freedom and to do all of what I can do.
You probably don't take things for granted that a lot of us do.
I don't. I really don't, especially walking out of the house and, you know, even on a rainy day, it doesn't matter. I'm still outside. It was better than back then.
So tell me about your idea of justice
Mm.
and what has transpired. And to my understanding, he got out in 2024.
He got out in 2022.
Okay.
He maxed out.
Mhm.
He got sentenced 5 to 15 years. That was the plea deal. They did not want me to go through a trial because they felt that I couldn't mentally do it
Yeah.
and that I was too traumatized. And so we took a plea deal, 5 to 15 years. And he served the 5 mandatory years. And then every year after that, he was up for parole. So I wrote letters to the parole board and I had friends write to the parole board. But then as the years went on, I would put it on my social media, because I found out that anybody could write the parole board on why he shouldn't get out. And so I'd put it on my social media and lots of people wrote to the parole board, and I can't thank them enough. But he maxed out. I made him serve the full 15.
Are you still scared of him?
And no, I'm not. I'm
Okay.
not. You
Good.
know, I'm I'm so strong after what happened. That if I saw him face to face, I don't know exactly what I would do, but I know I'd probably have some words to say,
Mhm.
you know. But luckily, I have not seen him since he got out in 2022. I do know where he lives because of Megan's Law. He is a registered sex offender for life,
Yeah.
and he lives far away enough from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any part of you that feels forgiveness or empathy for him?
I forgive him for me,
Yeah.
not for him.
Yeah.
I had to get that burden off of my shoulders, and it was with my pastor that her and I discussed this, and she helped me through it to forgive him for me.
Mhm.
And I have.
In listening to the story online, I couldn't help but question when they brought up the other missing girl that had been found, whether or not he had anything to do with it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I was interviewed by the homicide detectives 3 separate times,
Mhm.
and they asked me all kinds of questions like, "Did he ever come home covered in blood?" "No." "Did he ever come home disheveled or, like, with dirt on him or something?" And I was like, "No." "Did he ever come home looking like he murdered someone?" And I'm like, "I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but no, I guess." But I don't know
Mhm.
what he did whenever he left the house. There were times that he left the house when he wasn't working, and
Mhm.
he wouldn't tell me where he was going, you know? So I told them all of that, and I can't say yes and I can't say no.
Mhm.
Because, like I said, whenever he left the house, I don't know where he went, what he was doing, you know? But did he ever come home, like the detectives have asked me? No. But you don't know whenever he was out of the house. I don't know. That's why I'm at it, and I don't know. I can't say yes and I can't say no.
Mhm. Was there other people, like you mentioned that one other girl in school, but did he have this behavior or these patterns with other people as well, or did he just hone in and pick one?
It was owned in and picked one. That was me.
Hmm.
I mean, he was looking at that girl before me in school, but he honed in on me. It was after that he met me.
And maybe he just knew how vulnerable you were and your situation.
Right.
What would you say to anyone out there that is in currently domestic situations or enduring things that they don't want to endure? What would you tell them to help them?
That it's definitely okay to stand up for yourself and it's okay to leave, get yourself out of there, There's hope. I know that they would be scared to leave the situation.
Mhm,
But there's hope. I was scared. Like I said, I thought I was gonna be homeless,
mhm.
you know, and that didn't happen. And you just gotta think positive, that positive things are gonna happen, but you have to get that strength to leave. And I hope that hearing my story that gives them the strength to leave and get help and, be rescued themselves.
For you, was it the shopkeeper's reaction to you
Mhm.
that made you know it was possible?
Yes.
Yeah, tell us
Yeah.
about the role they played. They seemed in the
Oh,
movie, they seemed like lovely people.
they are. They're such lovely people. What a lovely family. You know, they I met Joe, Jan, and Joelle, which is Joelle's their daughter,
Yeah.
Joe and Jan, and his son Sean as well, who was a retired cop. And I just saw how loving they were and what a great marriage Joe had, and you know what I mean? And then I'm making friends with Joelle, who was older than me, but it was still making friends with someone,
Mhm,
and it was through watching them and everything, and Joe kind of, he knew something wasn't right because, I was with such an older man and I didn't have my parents in my life, and, and I was just so secluded. And that's what made me break down and tell him, and I blame myself whenever I first told him. I was like, I did something so horrible in my life. And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I told him that I ran away to be with Tom when I was 14 and that I'm 24 now. I've been with him for 10 years. And that's when Joe was like, "Oh my gosh." And I said, "I'm on the National Missing and Exploited Children's website because in the newspapers, it said that they put me on that list." But Tom says, "Oh, it's just another number in the database." But I knew that I was in there, and I said that to Joe. And he looked into it and realized, yes, I had been missing. He jumped into action, calling the police and calling his son, you know. and getting the ball rolling to get me rescued out of there. And I did everything that I normally did that day. I didn't do anything to tip Tom off, so he had no idea the cops were coming. He didn't know it was coming at all.
What did you do while you were there in the closet or in the room to pass the time?
Prayed. I talked to
Mhm.
God a lot.
Do you feel like you're closer to him now because of this?
Yes, yes. He's the one that got me through it. Yes.
Yeah, if there ever needed to be a direct highway to somebody, it would have been you.
Yeah.
Wow. Just one sec. So you really, in the end, became like, from what I saw in the movie, now this may or may not be accurate, but you were almost like the indentured servant for his parents,
Yes. I
right?
had stores.
And were they emotionally abusive to you as well? Like I got that vibe as well.
Not his dad, but his mom.
Okay.
His mom did not like me at
Okay.
all.
Do you think she knew any of
I don't think so. She was shocked when the police came in that day to
Wow.
rescue me because she was questioning them. Why are you in my house? What is going on? And they were like, your son pointed at me, held her captive. They pointed at me, and, 'cause she was like, why are you in my house at all? And they pointed at me and they said, your son has been holding her captive for 10 years since she was 14. All his mother did was turn around and go sit down in the kitchen. She didn't say a word after that.
Wow. How's his son doing mentally?
I don't know.
A And was he there the whole time that you lived there?
Yes.
Wow. And so did you
Yeah.
have any interaction with him?
Yes. We were friends, but unfortunately, when he turned 16, he started to make moves on me. And he
Okay.
tried with me, but I was able to thwart him off. And I tried telling Tom about it, and Tom did not believe me. He said his son would never do that. So
So tell me about Stockholm syndrome.
you empathize with your captor.
Uh-huh.
You empathize with him whenever he's telling you, like, I can't live without you. I'll kill myself without you, which Tom did too. He said that stuff to me.
Yeah.
And I empathized with him, and he just always had me feeling sorry for him.
So how long into this process did you until the end feel like you were his girlfriend? Or did you ever feel like the like captive?
No, I felt like I was his girlfriend up until I started to open my eyes and seeing Joe and his family and seeing how life really should be.
Mhm.
And then I was like, I didn't think of the word captive, but, you know, back then I was just thinking he won't let me go,
Yeah.
you know.
How did you begin rebuilding trust in yourself?
Oh, that took time and it was with a lot of therapy. Yeah.
What's the best advice you've had from therapy?
It's not my fault. And I want women to know that too. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not whatsoever. Don't ever blame yourself.
How does your husband support you?
Oh, he's been my rock.
I
He
got that from your story. I And
Yeah,
everything that I heard you ever say about him, he seems like he's a fantastic guy.
he is. Oh man, I've been so blessed with him. He's so understanding, he's down to earth, easy to talk to, and he's a good listener. We've just built such a great life together.
Mhm. Did you know it instantly when you met him?
No, we were friends at first. We just went for coffee.
Okay.
And we went out like 5 or 6 times as friends,
Yeah.
and talking and getting to know each other, we started to get feelings for each other.
Mhm.
And then we went to, downtown Pittsburgh. I live in the Pittsburgh suburbs in
Okay.
Pennsylvania, and we went to Pittsburgh, and they were having fireworks for something, and they were celebrating something. But we went down there anyway for the festivities, and that's when we both admitted to each other that we had feelings for each other.
So
And
you
it's been history ever since.
Were you scared to get into a real relationship with him?
That's why I was friends for quite a while with him,
Mhm.
before, him being my boyfriend at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine it would take a lot to come from the years of conditioning that you had to feeling like you even had a place at the table. Yeah. So if you could sit beside little Tanya right now at 14, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that she's strong, that she can get through anything, but never lose sight on God. Always rely on him. And I'd hug her. 'Cause I know that lonely little girl needs a hug.
What would you tell her about the possibilities of her future?
I would tell her that she's gonna meet the man of her dreams, and she is gonna live a wonderful life, and I have, I'm blessed.
Sometimes I think, you hear people that have been through things and other people that have been through things, but use those things as excuses to not live a good life or to not
Yeah,
not find blessings in their life. And, to have someone like you that has essentially missed her childhood,
yeah,
part of adulthood, to come out and say that you're just so grateful for the blessings that you have. It makes me rethink, just perspective. I mean, really, from what I think is that your life will be created from your perspective.
yes.
Yeah. Tell us who the important people are in your life right now.
Right now is my husband, of course,
Mhm.
my stepdaughter, my grandkids, my daughter-in-law, and I have 3 best friends. And
Amazing.
now there's 2 that I never got to meet in person. We've only known each other through FaceTime and Facebook.
Yeah.
One lives in Maine. He
Yeah.
lives up there, and then my other best friend lives in Massachusetts, and my other best friend other actually lives close to me. So we
Okay.
hang. Yeah.
Was it weird to come out and if you were taken in 96, did you have access to internet and stuff like that throughout the 10
Mm,
years? Was
no.
it a shock when you came out in 2006 and realized phones and all the rest of it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was something I had to learn how to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had a message right now that was meant to teach the world, what would that message be?
To teach the world is that you can turn a positive from a negative, you know?
Mhm.
You just have to have your mind on it and your mind sight to do that.
Mhm. If you could publicly declare a big audacious goal or dream for yourself, Tanya, what would it be?
Wow. It would be to meet my best friends in
Okay.
Massachusetts and in Maine.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
that I that's my it's my goal someday. Hopefully I could save up the money to fly and bring us all together, you know?
Do you find that it's harder for you to trust people?
Oh yeah. I've been burned a lot. A lot. Yeah.
What so if it's harder for you to trust people, you probably put up walls.
Yeah.
But
I
what
do.
what allows you to get close to people?
Their spirit,
Mhm.
how they are on the inside.
Yeah.
And last year I was laying in the hospital last May and I had blood clots in both lungs.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was my one best friend that came up to see me. Out of how many friends do I have? But she came up to see me. You find out who are your real friends and who's your fake ones,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
If you could give yourself a word for the future that you would like to resonate with, what would it be? People
Awesome.
always say those words for January 1st. My word for the year is if you could give yourself a word for how you wanna be in the future, what would it be?
Optimistic.
Well, you certainly seem like that. Now, tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure.
Did you have a ghostwriter for it? Did you write it? Tell us about the process, the story, and where people can get it.
He was my lawyer at first.
Yep.
And he talked to me about, what did you ever think about writing down what happened, And and like maybe writing a book about it. And at first I was kind of like, maybe not yet or anything. But he was like, no, how about you just tell me whatever you tell me. And he took notes. And then I'd go down to Pittsburgh and he would help me write it. And he wrote a chapter himself and I had to reread that, see if that was good. And it was published in 2011
Okay.
and it was a New York Times bestseller. You can get it on Amazon and it's called Memoir of a Milk Carton Kid.
Well, this is my hope, Tanya, is that
Mhm.
you sell so many freaking copies of that book that you are able to go and meet your best friends in Massachusetts and Maine. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
Yes.
And
Yes.
live a life of abundance and worry free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share about your story that you haven't been able to yet?
No, I touched base on everything, really.
Okay. And tell us how people can connect with you. So,
You can connect with me on Facebook,
okay.
Tanya Nicole Cash, and then in parentheses, you'll see Mimi. Mimi is my grandma name. That's what my grandkids call me.
Okay.
That's why I have the Mimi on there.
Okay. All right.
I have Instagram as well,
Yeah.
and it's Libra Girl 1481
Okay.
on
And
Instagram.
that's the best way to connect. And your books are on
Amazon.
Amazon. The movie, tell us what the movie's called.
The movie is called The Girl Locked Upstairs. It airs on Lifetime is what it aired on. But it does they do repeat the movie quite a bit actually on Lifetime and Lifetime Movie Network. But if you have a subscription to Lifetime Movie Network, then you can see my movie. You look it up.
I actually found it on YouTube. So the the
Oh,
the
did you?
whole the whole movie, the long version is on YouTube.
Oh,
So if you
okay.
just search Tanya Cash long version movie, you can find it on YouTube.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, I would just want to thank you, Tanya, for sharing your story. I know that likely diving back into all this isn't the easiest thing to do. And I always like sharing people's, from the inspiring perspective of how people are moving forward.
Yeah.
And I like so much seeing that you are just unapologetically you and just living a blessed, grateful, and quiet life
Yeah.
serving what sounds like your family and your grandkids and
Yeah.
and sharing your story with others
Yeah.
so that hopefully this doesn't happen because I would imagine just so you know, I am absolutely no legal expert nor claim to be, but holy 5 years with the possibility of more for something like this, for kidnapping and holding hostage this long. That just seems like our entire system is rigged for the wrong.
Oh,
Well, Tanya, I appreciate your time today
no
and
problem.
your story and just to be able to connect a little bit about you. And thank you for sharing a little piece of your heart with our listeners.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.